we are. Boom. Nobody's here but me in a big empty room. Just me and David. Hey, Sir Duck. All right, 73 degrees. And I think it's partially cloudy. There's a few clouds, but not much. Really nice out today, though. And let's see, we have Alonzo. Hey, hey, hey. So we're in. We're only here. And we have Terry. And we have Glenn. So it's Happy Friday. Today's the shorter day because today is Trevor's birthday. So I have to be out of here after about 40 minutes or so. 45 minutes because it's the big baby boy's birthday and he wants to go to Texas Roadhouse. Yes. So I have to be finished and make sure he goes and gets his dinner. Yeah, we'd all say happy birthday to him, but he's too busy walking around the house without a shirt talking about something in the other room. I don't know what he's talking about. I told him he should be here on live. It's for his birthday, at least to say hi. There we go. So it's Trevor's 25th birthday. So he's big 25 today. So he wants, there's Jax, and it's not Jax's birthday. No matter how much Jax wants it to be his birthday. Yes, good boy. All right. So there we go. A couple weeks out of the rendezvous. Back to normal. And yeah, I thought he might be coming in, but he's not. He disappeared. I heard his door shut. So yeah, so it's kind of out of the rendezvous. See, and then it becomes that kind of odd spot because it's kind of like, okay, start spooling things back up, doing Chasing Legends and stuff, and it's like, it's kind of the holidays hitting and everything else going on, so you're kind of in a whirlwind of different things. So, but yes, he's going out to have his dinner. I can't remember what it was he wanted. Can't remember what it was. Maybe he just likes the peanuts. So, there you go. Anyways, toast Bob Ward. All Bobs. Ward and Corbin and all of them. So this week, I really didn't talk to anybody. Heard from a few people, but nothing really. It was very quiet, and I think that's the holidays. You get through the rendezvous, and then there's the week after. Everybody's kind of like, yeah, that was great, good job, da, da, da. And then it's just everything falls off. Everybody's getting ready to go in the mountains, and that's just the way it is. And with the holidays, onset of the holidays, and moving in, and the weather's nicer, and everybody starts forgetting about things. I think this time of year, it's the next probably month and a half is, well, from a week or so ago, but it's about a month and a half where time moves fast because there's so many things going on and moving in the air, and everybody's trying to do their Thanksgiving, and then they get out of their Thanksgiving, and then they're trying to put their Christmas together, and then they get through Christmas, and then they got to put the Christmas stuff away, and then suddenly it's the new year, and everybody's just exhausted. So there we are. So yeah, I keep waiting for Trevor to pop in, but we're not getting Trevor. Anyhow, everybody obviously can hear me, and Trevor thanks those of you for saying happy birthday. So there we go. But it is Happy Friday, I guess. A tired Happy Friday. I've been at it all day. It's really weird because I don't know anybody else has that problem where your clock doesn't stop, so I still get up if I'm not working, and I still do things, and then I'm kind of antsy, and by the time everybody else gets up, I'm almost tired and ready to take a nap of just the energy of wanting to go. But we got a bunch of stuff done today. I found out Trevor is not over his fear of heights. He actually gave me a nod of respect. We were up on the roof and doing stuff, and I was walking around and doing stuff, and I was asking him to do a couple things, and he was pointing out he can't imagine how I lived my life up on roofs and doing stuff like that, just walking around, no fear of heights or falling or anything. And I was just like, what? So I can hear you, but volume seems a little low. Unsure if it's just me. It's probably just me. I'm a little less bouncing my voice out today. Yes, Glenn and I will, and Terry said happy birthday, and someone else did. But yeah, again, he disappeared. I'm sure part of it was no shirt, Trevor. I hear him. There he goes. Yeah, he's still shirtless, so he's not coming in. He's not doing his Bert Kreischer. So, anyways, so he's very aware of it. He's looking this way. So there we go. So it's that time of year where you have to move the foosball table and the drum kit out of the living room for the Christmas tree, which is kind of a weird thing. Doesn't everyone have a foosball table and a Christmas or a drum kit in their living room? It's just, I thought it was just normal. So everybody's doing the hushed whispered thing because they're too close to the door. They don't know what to do with themselves. So there we go. So again, the rendezvous. Thank you to everybody came out. It was a really good rendezvous, and the authors and everybody came out. It was really good to hear a lot of the talks throughout the day. Oh, wow, yeah. It's therapeutic and it's nice. I mean, everybody can play with it, and I don't know. I just, it came down to my daughter one day just said she'd play the drums if there was a drum kit in the house, and I thought, that isn't that big of a deal, is it? So we went out, looked around, found someone that had a full set kit. A floor tom, a couple other toms, and a snare drum, bass drum, a couple cymbals. I brought a couple more cymbals and all. We have no cowbell, but and the hi-hat, and we just bought it, put it in the living room, and I think pretty much everybody's played with it. It's just, it scares the crap out of the dogs, and it's loud as hell. If you open the front door, you can hear it down the block, but it's kind of fun. Everybody gives you an idea, you sense of your time and measure, but it's just kind of fun. So, and there's nothing, the foosball table is occasionally it gets, you notice everything that you buy that you think you have a need for, and then it becomes like either a shelf or it's a place you hang clothes. We have a wider weight system that things are piled on and clothes hang off of, and then the foosball table always has stuff, and the dogs sleep underneath it. So go figure that. So all the things you think you need, and then they just become kind of shelving units around the house. That being said and done, yes, he's gone again. So maybe he will. Woody. Yes, Woody. I'm not Woody. Woody. Okay, it's a kind of a statement. Woody's fine, as far as I know. I haven't talked to him since the rendezvous. We talked afterwards, and then I haven't heard from him since. So I'm sure he's doing well. Because I talked to everybody the week after the rendezvous, and I think everything went pretty good. I don't think anything was wrong with anyone or anything. Everybody had a good time. So, and Woodrow was doing fine. I talked to Woodrow the last day after I'd left. He was still in camp, and he was packing up, and the Forestry Service had came through to check on everyone, make sure the fires were out, and we were getting all the trash out, and Woody talked to them for a while. But that was probably the last time I talked to him, so I'll talk to him again here soon, because that's just the way it goes. But, yeah, everybody gets kind of busy, and then everybody starts catching everybody on the phone. So this is probably the week where you always think of family and friends and stuff, but it's probably the worst week for all of us because you're so busy and everybody's work schedules and everything's twisted and turned that everybody's not in as much contact. Next week it'll be probably more normal, so because back into the normal groove of things. So there you go. Always remember to go out and Amazon Prime and watch sunsets. Trevor's film, which is done really well. So, still selling them, and there's people still watching them, and it's cool. Is your volume very low? And I'm talking kind of, I don't know, my voice is just kind of, I'm maxed out and can barely hear you. I see I'm popping on my register here. Let me see if I. No, this isn't going to change anything. No, so everything's fine. I can get closer. See, boom. But, no, I just don't think I'm projecting today. I don't know what it is. What do you call it? That ASMR or whatever it is, where they whisper, hello. Yeah, I'm in that mode today. So, gravelly and content, and know that there's a stake in my future. See, I'm almost psychic, so I know there's a stake in my future. Not many people talking or asking questions or anything today, so it's very low key. I do feel like, yeah, now that I'm just kind of, it's like the fireside chat. So, yeah, I don't think there's anything I can do. There's nothing else to adjust on the mic. But I can see that I'm not clipping, but the mic is picking things up. So, there you go. It's my sexy voice. Unsure if you've asked you before, but what's your overall thoughts on the Jacob Weiser story? I think he had a partner. Something happened to his partner, whether it's Weiser, Weiss, Weisner, whichever story fits the bill. The only problem is, while there was a guy named Weiss, Jacob Weiss, out of Prescott, that kind of was attached to Waltz in that time period. But as far as I think Thomas Glover found there was some dead letters for a Weiser or Weisner in Phoenix. But a lot of people went under the radar. So, I mean, that was a time period that probably people avoided, just getting accounted for. And that's unfortunate. With Waltz, the difference was he was looking to gain citizenship, and then once he did, he started filing claims, and then he became a property owner, and there was a number of incidents. But think about that. When you look at all the documentation from Jacob Waltz, it's so thin, and there is quite a bit of it, and we know he did exist and stuff, but it was easier to stay under unless you were someone rather prolific locally, even though Phoenix was only probably a couple thousand people. Hey, and how come neither of you guys use your names? So, David is Sir Duck, and Lacey is CC Playmate. Glenn is just Glenn. Well, it's a Black Friday. It's a Black Friday? I don't know. I don't do any of that tomfoolery. But as far as Waltz and his partner, I mean, the nephew thing just seems absurd at this point, because there is nothing on him. That just purely is like one of those Dick Holmes kind of things. So I think when it comes to Waltz, we have to kind of look at it as like he probably had a partner, and who knows how much attention that was paid. That just think of this. All of us today would have a lot of questions about some specific things that nobody cared about. Everybody cared about is he was trying to tell Julian Reinhardt how to get to the camp. He sat around telling stories, and there was tons of stuff that he told them that we would be just love to hear about his travels and his trips down through California into Arizona. And I'm sure they were told that stuff. And I'm sure some of it was shared, but nobody cared about it, because at the time it was about, well, they wanted to know where the mine was, where the camp was. And think about this, even the newspapers reported it wasn't never the story about finding Waltz's camp where the ore was. It was about the mine, and that wasn't his focus with them. So I think just nobody thought about asking the questions, because nobody was thinking of doing a biography on Jacob Waltz. So whether it's Weiss, Weisner, Weiser, I think that all got kind of lost in the shuffle. And I'm sure people knew at one time, but then think by the time that generation's gone, some 20, 25 years later, you got the next second-hand stories, the third-hand stories, and I think that stuff just falls off. and then people just having a name or something non-specific about the partner just started making stuff up to fill it in. YouTube changed. It doesn't use our names anymore for some reason. Huh, that's weird. I don't know what my name is. I'm having a bad day. Are there any manuscripts or notes by Roy Bradford? I think he was searching back in the 1920s. I'd have to go through the archives and look. I don't know about a manuscript. They all wrote manuscripts at one point or another. How you see them one way or the other is tough. But I know there's files on them in the Times. So I'm trying to just offhand, kind of in the back of my head, kind of think about it. I'll note that down and have to look the next time I'm over and checking through all that stuff, because I want to say there's something, and I'm trying to think whether it's just something I heard from Tom or someone, or if it's something I've run across. I have to go through the files. And then sometimes it's not so much them specifically, but someone they knew. I am rereading Ripples of Lost Echoes, Bob Ward, and he mentions the Mexicans fought the Apaches at the side of the Don. Are you familiar with this story? I'm familiar with the story that Bob Ward told. Whether it was true or not, they could have fought there, because that would have been an area, out in the flat where something could have happened. There's a lot of history in that area, a lot more than everybody realizes. And every year at the rendezvous, I talk about it, and Larry popped in and he said happy birthday to Trevor, and people are still saying happy birthday to Trevor. But I think Bradford was searching with Abe Reed. Yeah, and I like I said, it probably would have been stuff through Tom. So I'll just have to look it up and see what it is. I don't know what I have specifically on him and all that. But as far as Bob Ward stuff, you don't know where he always got his stories. And, that was a kind of an odd group about certain things. I know the Hohokam were in there, and the crematories up there. And, that area's been so plundered. Well, I guess that's the best way to put it. When you have to figure that the ranching that went in there, and then in the 1930s, the Linesbys had moved in there, and then the house, I think the house was there, and they added to the house. And then Marcelle Linsby was there after her husband died, and she lived there. They had claims, but I think even in this day in the Superstitions, I talk in the 1890s, I think they were talking about mining claims in that area. So there would have been a lot going on, and they had problems with the Apaches until the 1880s, 1890s, sometimes off the res in those areas. So I think Bradford was searching with Abraham. Okay, I'm all caught up. See, everything's slower today, and I'm mellower today, and everything. And I want to lean back, but everybody says I'm so quiet. So, and I just don't. I don't know. I'm just not projecting. That's a weird one. Very laid back today. I think it's because I'm hungry and I want to eat, and I'm watching the clock and realize that I'm getting closer and closer to dinner. But I'll have to look that up, because I'll be over there to look. I got some other things I got to jump into, and then I got to start sorting my files out. I'm going to get some help and get my stuff sorted out, filed better, so I can look at it quicker. Because that's one of my problems is I have everything's just out of order. There's no alphabetizing. It's just in boxes, and then what's in the file cabinets is just piled in. And there's a couple boxes that has stuff that I've been through more, because I keep moving it around in boxes, whatever I'm looking at most frequently, and then there's boxes of stuff I can't even remember why I have it. And there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's at least 10 of those file boxes full of files and stuff. And then there's, of course, the 6 filing cabinets. Those are loaded, and who knows what else. And then, of course, I got a bunch of stuff before all that. I digitized stuff, so I got tons of discs of stuff that was digitized and all that. And hi, Wayne. Hello, everyone. Happy birthday, Trevor. My birthday was the 23rd. Well, happy birthday to you, Tony. There you go. So now I think, I almost sounded like Casey Kasem there. Bradford was supposed to have found, well, everybody found Waltz's stone house. They found them everywhere. There was a stone house on the end of Bluff Springs on the northwest corner. And I remember the story about that. And someone talked about it once. And I can't remember who. And I think that was a Barkley story. Bill Barkley? Maybe it was Bill Barkley's story. But they were talking that they had, knew the general area and were talking about it. And we were out there. And I wanted to know where they thought it was supposed to be. And I don't think we found anything in particular that would tell us something was there. So, and yet the strangest thing on that was when it was a miscommunication, was I was looking for that one that was in that story. There was half a dozen guys from Mexico came up and they were looking for the stone house, and someone observed them. Maybe it was Bill Barkley. And they were measuring or doing something from what was left of the foundation of this old stone building. And so they went back to look at it later to kind of look at what they were doing, figuring maybe it has something to do with the mines. And they found it had been disassembled and you couldn't find a trace of it anywhere. So they had purposely taken it apart so nobody could utilize whatever information they had that no one else had. Well, I was really interested in it, and a couple trips, and Tom Collenborn was giving me information about another one that was on the south end of Bluff Springs that was hidden, and that one amazed me because Tom had pictures and stuff and talked about it, and it was, I don't know when it got torn down or just fell apart, 80s maybe. Anyways, that was there. Oh, the devil himself. The devil himself. But anyways, that one I think is gone, but that was someone lived in that one Tom talked about. A lot of people told you happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so there you go. They say I'm very low. Am I quiet today? Am I subdued?
I don't know.
You speak.
I did. I'm coming in around 30 to 35 decibels.
So, I don't know. It just...
You're coming in about the...
Yeah, I don't think
30 to 25.
I don't know. I feel like I'd have to be yelling to... I don't know.
It could be that someone...
Don't mess with the mic, because then we suddenly lose... Then we go into the bizarre world.
Yeah, it could be someone accidentally turned it down when they were cleaning in here or something.
Nobody cleans this. Look at this. See this? If I don't clean it, nobody cleans this. Yeah. Don't show someone dust and then wipe it on black. Anyways, yeah, nobody cleans this up except for me, this section here, because I don't want anybody touching anything. But yeah, I wouldn't have thought anybody messed with this at all. All right. So anyways, that was the story on that. But that was, I think, I don't know if either of Tom's books ever discussed that story or was in the Chronicles. But anyways, Tom thought I was talking about one thing, and it was another, and then I found this other story out, and then I went looking for that, and I never really found it. Greetings, Wayne. Gil Gold Prospecting in San Antonio, Texas, where every day is a gold day. It gives more credibility in Walt's having a Peralta mine. Well, there was a number of different Peraltas. There's the Al Morrow story.
I'm going to go finish homework.
Okay, bye. Okay, yeah, it's going to be soon time to eat. We're narrowing it down. But Al Morrow said a guy came in who was the Gonzalez family, which the Adolph Ruth, Irwin Ruth story are related to the Peraltas. He said a guy named Gonzalez came in And they searched. That was an Almoro's manuscript. And he was related to the Peraltas, and they found something. Frank Peralta had interest. You have Frank Fish, who searched the Peraltas in Mexico, realizing the maps, the Gonzaleses were to belong to the Peraltas. That's where he found what we call the Frank Fish map with a group of people, the Peralta family. There was another Peralta who came in, and I think, is it a Sims Ely story or a Jim Bark story, where he came in and took someone out to where some of the mining operations had been in the mountains, and everything was, he said, just everything was, nothing was the same. It was just, had been just, worn out from the weather. The mines had obviously been covered. So there's a number of Peralta stories. Unfortunately, because if we take anything into account, the massacre and some other things, it wouldn't have taken much more than a generation for that story to fall out of the family. So greetings from Vegas and greetings from Michigan. So all over the place today. We lost our Irish and European friends that used to join us all the time. I think, when you think about it, it was like, yeah, they were getting up at 3, 4 in the morning or what. It was weird hours for them to do this. Anyhow, so the Peralta attachments were very, very interesting. And that, to me, of course, people goof with that by making up stories and so forth. But I know the Frank Peralta and Linda Peralta and that family got very interested. And then that creates confusion, because when the Legends of Adventure group, which was the Armatrouts, the Schaefers, and John Burbridge and that group, they got Frank Peralta involved. They all made those maps and then signed them. And then I think somehow the story got worked around that, rather than being Erie Schaefer had got the map from Frank Fish, people were thinking that the map came from the Peraltas. And they were all signed, and that was copies that they signed, so they would all have a copy of the map. You're stuck with me from the Treasure Coast. Well, there you are. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Treasure Coast, North Dakota. See there, Fort Ransom from North Dakota, and people from all over the place. But the Peralta story is really interesting. People are still looking for that Peralta book that was singularly spoken of by Gene Reynolds in Borrego 13. And he said he was visiting the Roos, and he was in the basement, and when he was left alone, he saw a book, and it said Peralta on the cover. And he said he looked through it, and it had pictures and mining stuff and all kinds of stuff. And there is a book that says called Peralta, but it's basically to do with the family in California. But he said he was reading through it and found it kind of interesting. And then he put it back on the bookshelf. And when he went back, the next time he visited or inquired about it, never got a hold of it again. But we've all been wondering where that was published out of, which he said it was published out, I believe, Kansas City. So it was a very interesting thing. If you get a copy of Borrego 13, which is very difficult now since Gene died. Gene did them on CDs, and then you load it in your computer and read it. He did one without pictures, and then once he'd sold out of those, or I don't even remember even paying for one. I think he just gave them to me. But then he did one with photographs, and then someone did a bound edition, which I have on the bookshelf. And I really liked the book. It was a good story. It was a story about his search, and it was him working with Glenn McGill and then going off on his own and stuff. But it had that book and tied into the Peraltas. And the Peralta story is interesting because that's what Jim Bark chased into Mexico, and then he chased it to Spain, trying to find ties of taking that name, of course. And then I think one of the arguments was Peralta is a bit like Smith, Jones, and Johnson, and there's just so many people and all, they weren't able to really do much with it. So there you go. So we're at 4:30. So whew, I'm getting closer to dinner. All right. So, anyways, yeah. So the Peralta stuff is very interesting to me. I have the books on the Revis Peralta grant and the whole fraud thing. I got some books on the Peraltas and different things, and I met a few of them, but you know, I think in general, most of them learned their history from everybody else that did all that stuff. Hey, there's Dallas. How's it going, Dallas? So I've always found that angle interesting, and that's one of those things again is like, you know, we were talking last week, and we'll always talk about it. Is Jim Bark, not just the Jim Bark manuscript. When you think of and the 30 questions he asked Julian Reinhardt, which we don't have the actual questions specifically, but think of all the research he did in Mexico, in Spain, and he kind of doesn't really address it. So just think of how much material there was, how much he learned going places, and how it kind of like changed things out. So had their base camp at Coffee Flat. Have you been there? Yes, I've been to Coffee Flat, and I've been to Squatite, which is the same place. They would have been out there when it was probably Squatite. Yeah, that's where the Stickman story's from. That's up on there, and a few other stories. But yeah, Abe was out there. He was at Blacktop Mesa, and then he ended up out where, well, fitting, he ended up at a place called Reed's Water, named after him. But I don't know what was Reed's Water named. Well, that's what that would be, a Tom thing, huh? What was Reed's Water called before Abe Reed moved there? Is the water tank in Barks Basin still being used? Barks Basin? Or are you talking Barkley Basin? You're talking Barkley Basin, north of the quarter circle U. I'm sure they're still doing it. Well, I don't know. You know, that was an interesting thing when Howard Hornick was the caretaker. It was important to him to always open up springs, work on the water tanks, and make sure everything was functional and everything. So I don't know what yes was, Randolph Canyon or me saying Barkley Basin. But so now Howard's gone. I don't know, because one, there's much more restriction to the ranch in that area. We used to go, every time I went out, you always spent some time at the ranch or just wandered around out in the basin. And we spent so much time out there. And then you had, you know, Howard would always talk and about stuff he was doing. And you would run into him places and he'd tell you, yeah, I was over here doing this. So he did a lot of good of all these old springs and water tanks and stuff, and making sure everything was well and good. I think stuff they weren't even using, he maintained. And now I don't know how they're working. I know they're doing a bit of, I think there was, last time I talked to Sharon Donnelly, the cattle from the Quarter U and the Donnelly Ranch, they're moving them around together. Of course, unfortunately, there's a little less room because they keep building on stuff. But I would think they would still maintain them, because if you run into that kind of situation, you always have that. I don't know what kind of shape something like Cholla tank and those would be in at this point, because, you know, even Garden Valley, the tanks up there, they just don't even look the same as they did when I was a kid. But again, it's just, I don't know what the usage is down and around there. Most of the cows seem to really hang up along Peralta Road anymore, which is crazy. But yeah, we'd have to go out there. And I a couple of times have tried to, you know, go out and the gates are closed and nobody's answering the phone. But yeah, I just wish there was a better way, because, you know, you can drive a lot of that. There's still roads out there. And that was the nice thing, is just to take one of the old roads out there, just south of the wilderness area, and then just stop and then get out and walk around for a while. and search through the area. And I don't, who knows how bad a shape that stuff's in, even though about 10 years ago, most of it was in really good shape. And I don't think Jack Carlson's been out there since Howard left, really, and spent much time. So, but, and are you talking about the tank that's to the east down the end of the road? Because there's an above ground tank that I know is still there, and a corral. And that's still there. We just saw that. But I don't know about the other tanks further up into the basin. No, you'd have to, because they got 2 gates. It's double gated now before you can go in there. So you'd have to they have to be open. And then you have to kind of be able to give them a heads up and anything. And the Forest Service made an agreement, since there's a trail, people can have access to the basin without having to drive into the basin. And like I said, we used to drive through the quarter U, the backside, go through the gate on the backside of the ranch, and then go out to the far east end. But then there were roads that went up almost up to the boundary. Now, they're not in very, very good shape, but you could drive up a lot of the roads for quite a ways and then get out and walk the rest of the way, because they still did plenty out there. Have we heard any update as to when they are going to pave Peralta? That is kind of still in the air. I think it's a funding issue. It's supposed to be into 2026, 2027 now. So I'm thinking 2027, 2028. And I'm wondering how how's it all going to work? If it never happens, I wouldn't be surprised. Because that's going to be a lot of work, a lot of money, and a lot of problems. I think if the Peralta County Park, was getting far more usage, it would be more up on the burner getting hot. But I think it's less likely, because I've been out there and the county park never seems very busy at all. I don't think I've ever seen an event planned there that the county or anybody has. So since not much is going on there, you ever want to do your conspiracy on a government land grab, that's one for you. They built a county park and restricted things and took things out and buried things, and nobody's there. There's just a guy sitting in a trailer, and then there's a ranger that just drives around and just sits on hills and looks around. It's kind of like Area 51, except you're allowed to walk around. There's nobody there. We did that one day. It was us, the ranger driving around, and the county ranger, park ranger, and no one else. And it was just weird, because he was following us around, watching us, and then he came over to talk to us, because it was funny, because he's watching us because he has nothing to do. So, been a long time. Glad you're still doing your thing. I always keep doing my thing. Gotta have something to do. Yeah, the roads are not accessible, Dallas, so I wish they were. That was during the rendezvous, we used to go out to the quarter circle U, and we used to go out there and walk through the whole thing and, show how they brand. And then sometimes what was really cool, and none of us ever filmed it, I don't know why, they used to be processing cattle. We used to stand there and watch them process the cattle and do stuff. It was really cool. I think it was eye-opening for a lot of people how that works and how difficult of a job it is, and that the whole family's out there pitching in. And then, what would happen is we'd go out, and then Jack Carlson and a couple other guys would get tapped, and they would end up having to work at the ranch for the rest of Saturday. And then they would come into camp that night just beat, because they had to, because that's just kind of that thing. If the family needs some help, they're shorthanded, give them a hand. But I remember going out there, and not only the walkthroughs of the ranch and the tours by Howard and Dean and even Chuck. I walked around with Chuck more than a few times out there. But when they were processing cattle, they just brought the cattle in and they were processing cattle. That was very, very cool. And yet, outside of some pictures, I got some pictures of it. Nobody ever thought of filming it, and we should have. Would have been really cool footage. But it is what it is. in the aftermath of things. Okay, we're doing the wind down because I made a promise that I would be done by 4:45, and we're at 4:40, so I'm going to start winding it down. We got into a few things. It's just usually, sometimes it's more fired up. I don't know. Maybe it's the low key me is a low key show, and then when I'm much more like booming in here, maybe that's the difference. Because usually I'm in here and I can hear a little bit of ringing off the guitars as I'm talking. And today it just seems like I'm very subdued. Maybe, like I said, maybe it's just I'm thinking about, Texas Roadhouse has that bread. The breads, those rolls, those are good. And then I know I'm having some steak. And I'm not going to have fun. I'm going to eat. Yeah, I don't know. He disappeared again. Yeah, and I don't know. He's not around. But, yeah, I'm sure he's looking at the clock now, and I don't know, maybe if I wait an extra minute or two, he'll pop in. Too much turkey. I don't eat turkey. I don't eat any birds. I don't have turkey. It almost sounds like the game was turned down a little. The mixing, there's no mixing board. The mic actually doesn't have that setting. It has, unless someone changed there is a focal setting on the dynamic of the mic, but there is no volume knob. It just goes left, right, center, and then it has the different, because the mic can be multi-directional, and I usually have the direction this way, and I'll look at it and check it once we're done. But yeah, I haven't messed with the mic. Last time I had the mic, I just basically, when we're done with this, I take the mic, I move it back, and this mic is only used for these things. For recording, I don't use this mic. So, yeah, it doesn't get touched or messed with it in any way. So I don't know. And it could be very well that I did something, adjusting it, and I touched something or spun something or moved something. There is a lot of little gadgets on it. I just never touch them or move them. All I know is when the red light's on and the one line's running straight. That's all I need to know. So, and then I watch the mixer. And on the mixer, it is full up. There is no way to get it any more full up. I could touch it and I could drop the sound, but the mixer is on full up. In fact, usually I have to touch it a little bit back because I'm usually popping, I'm redlining. Anyways, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you everybody for coming. Some of you I have not seen in here for a while, and it was good. Sorry it was so low key and laid back, and kind of, no, I didn't have any mushrooms, and no, there wasn't any smoke or anything going on. Just maybe it was too much food and pie. I ate a bunch of pie yesterday, so maybe it was the chocolate pie. But kind of like, yeah, I'm real mellow right now, and I'm looking forward to that food. So everybody else, take care. Catch us on Chasing Legends on Monday. Of course, again, we'll be on live Friday. Next Friday, we should be again. Keep going. And we'll have our This Day in the Superstitions, which are quite popular moving forward into next year. But to everybody that came in, hung with us, and hung out and everything all through and through, thank you so much for making this so much fun. And I didn't get angry and threaten to hang anybody or slit anybody's throat today. See, imagine that. I was in a good mood today. Maybe that's it. I kind of, maybe that's me drawing back after having that flourish the last time at the end. So now I'm kind of like, yeah, I shouldn't be, I was threatening one of my friends, and I didn't harm him either. We got to the rendezvous and I didn't kill him, so didn't do a thing to him. I let everything go. And then he cooked us all dinner. So anyways, thank you everybody for joining us. We will catch you again next week. Until then, I'm going to get out of here and make a clean break of it. Adios. Fare thee well, and we'll see you again next week on Legends.